He says he has a specific type he's attracted to. Short hair, professional appearance, a certain look. He thought we both looked more sophisticated with pixie cuts. But really, he wanted us to look similar, so his fantasy could stay consistent. He wanted to be able to picture the same type of woman whether he was with me or with Jasmine. Jasmine's voice is cold when she asks if there are other women. Arlo shakes his head quickly and says it's just been us two. But he hesitates before answering, and that pause tells us everything. We look at each other, and I can see the same doubt in her eyes that I feel. We might never know the full truth. There could be others we don't know about. There could be more lies we haven't uncovered yet. I tell Arlo we're both done with him. Jasmine nods and says the same thing. Arlo stands up fast and reaches toward us. He says he'll do anything to fix this. He'll go to therapy. He knows he has problems. He can change if we give him another chance. He says he'll choose one of us if that's what it takes. His desperation makes my stomach turn. The fact that he's still trying to negotiate and bargain just proves we're making the right choice. I walk to the bedroom and start grabbing my things. Clothes from the closet, toiletries from the bathroom, books from the nightstand. Jasmine stays in the living room, and I can hear Arlo's voice rising and falling as he tries to talk to her. I stuff everything into the bags I brought. My hands shake as I pack, but I keep moving. Every item I take feels like reclaiming a piece of myself. I find photos of us together and leave them on the dresser. I don't want any reminders. When I come back to the living room with my bags, Jasmine is standing by the door. Arlo is still on the couch with his face in his hands. I walk to the kitchen counter and set down my apartment key. The metal makes a small sound, but it hits the granite. Something about that tiny noise feels final. I feel relief mixed with this heavy sadness. 3 years of my life were built on lies, but at least now I know the truth. Jasmine and I walk out together without saying anything else to Arlo. In the hallway, she pulls out her phone. We exchange numbers, and she says we should stay in touch. We're not friends exactly, but we understand each other in a way nobody else can. We both gave up parts of ourselves for someone who was using us. We both trusted someone who was systematically lying every single day. She gives me a quick hug before we go to our separate cars. I drive to Rosemary's apartment because I can't go back to the place I shared with Arlo. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Rosemary opens the door and takes one look at my face and pulls me inside. She doesn't ask questions. She just makes tea and sits with me while I cry. Over the next few days, I stay on her couch and try to figure out what comes next. Arlo keeps texting. Long messages about how sorry he is and how he wants to explain. Voice messages where he sounds like he's been crying. I read the first few, and then I stop. My sister Gabriella comes over one evening and looks at my phone. She says I need to block his number. She says every time I read his messages or listen to his voice, I'm giving him power over me. She's right, so I block him. The silence after that feels strange, but also freeing. Gabriella offers to help me look for a new apartment. She says I can't stay with Rosemary forever, even though Rosemary keeps saying I can stay as long as I need. We spend the weekend looking at listings online and visiting places. Gabriella makes jokes about Arlo's weird hair thing to try to make me laugh. She says maybe I should date a bald guy next time, just to be safe. I do laugh, even though it still hurts. We look at studios and one-bedrooms across town, places that Arlo has never been to and will never know about. I need space that's completely mine. Somewhere he can't picture me or show up unexpectedly. The apartments are more expensive than splitting rent with him was, but I don't care. I find a small studio in a building with good security. It has big windows and the landlord seems nice. I sign the lease 2 weeks after the confrontation at Arlo's place. The apartment is empty when I get the keys, but it feels like possibility instead of loneliness. I stand in the middle of the bare floor and look around at my new space. Nobody has controlled me here. Nobody has lied to me here. This is where I start over. A few days after moving into my new place, my phone buzzes with a text from Jasmine. She says she reported everything to HR at Arlo's company because he used work events to carry out his lies. She says they're looking into whether he broke any rules about honesty in relationships. I stare at the message for a long time before responding that I think she did the right thing. The idea of him facing real consequences at work makes me feel something between satisfaction and exhaustion. I don't have energy left to be angry, but I'm glad someone is holding him accountable. Jasmine texts back that the HR person seemed shocked when she explained the timeline and showed photos of both of us at different company events. She says they asked a lot of questions about how long it had been going on and whether any coworkers knew. I wonder if Julian will get in trouble for helping cover everything up. My phone rings 2 days later, and it's Caitlin from Arlo's department. She says she wanted to check on me and share what's happening at the office. People are disgusted by what Arlo did according to her. She says Julian is dealing with fallout too, because several coworkers realized he must have known about both relationships. The gossip is intense, but most people feel bad for Jasmine and me. Caitlin says she feels guilty for not noticing something was wrong earlier. I tell her there was no way she could have known because Arlo was careful about keeping us separate. She mentions that some people are avoiding Arlo in the break room and at meetings. His reputation is damaged in ways that will probably follow him for years. I thank her for calling and for being kind about the whole situation. After we hang up, I feel strange knowing that strangers at his office are talking about my relationship and feeling sorry for me. I decide I need professional help processing everything, so I search for therapists who work with manipulation cases. I find someone named River, who specializes in emotional abuse and control. Her office is in a quiet building downtown with plants in the waiting room. She has kind eyes and doesn't push me to talk before I'm ready. In our first session, I tell her about the hair and the lies until I stop recognizing myself. River listens without interrupting, and then says what Arlo did with my hair was part of a bigger pattern. He explains that he was eroding my sense of self bit by bit. He made me doubt my own judgment about something as basic as my appearance. River says this kind of manipulation works because it happens slowly over months and years, until you can't remember what you wanted before someone else started telling you what to want. Over the next few weeks in therapy, I worked through how I gradually lost trust in myself. River asks me to think about other decisions where Arlo influenced my choices. I realize he had opinions about my clothes and my friends and how I spent my free time. He always framed his preferences as helpful suggestions or concerns about what was best for me. River explains that abusers don't usually start with big controlling moves. They start small with things that seem reasonable, like suggesting a haircut or commenting on an outfit. Then they build on those small victories until they've reshaped major parts of your life. She says the insidious part is that you think you're making your own choices because the pressure is subtle and constant rather than forceful. By the time you realize what's happened, you barely remember who you were before. I decide to do something symbolic and get an appointment with someone I've never been to before. When I sit in the chair, I tell the stylist I need help figuring out what I actually want my hair to look like. I explain that for years someone else controlled how I wore it, and now I don't trust my own taste. The stylist is patient and shows me different options with layers and colors. We talk through what feels right to me without anyone else's input. I decide to keep growing my hair out, but add long layers that frame my face. We choose a rich brown color with subtle highlights that catch the light. When she finishes, I look in the mirror and feel something shift inside me. This hair is mine. I chose it. Nobody pressured me or made me doubt myself. The woman looking back at me feels more real than she has in years. Jasmine texts asking if I want to meet for coffee again. We pick a place halfway between our apartments, and when she walks in, I notice her hair is growing out too. It's past her chin now, and she looks different from the photos I saw on her social media. We order drinks and sit by the window. She touches her hair and smiles sadly. She says she realized she associated short hair with being controlled, even though the haircut itself wasn't the problem. The manipulation was the problem. I tell her I understand completely because I went through the same thought process. We laugh, but it's not really funny. It's more like we're acknowledging how messed up the whole situation was. Jasmine says her new boyfriend loves her hair at any length, and never comments on it unless she asks his opinion. She seems lighter somehow, like she's rediscovering parts of herself she forgot existed. I get a text from Caitlin with an update about Arlo's work situation. The company is making him transfer to a different department so he won't have to interact with Jasmine. His reputation is still damaged, and several coworkers have distanced themselves from him. People who used to eat lunch with him now sit at different tables. Julian is dealing with social consequences too because everyone knows he helped hide the truth. Caitlin says the workplace gossip has mostly died down, but people still bring it up sometimes. She mentions that Jasmine seems to be doing better and has stopped looking over her shoulder in the hallways. I'm glad the company took action even though I know it doesn't fix what happened. At least Jasmine doesn't have to see him every day and pretend everything is normal. Rosemary comes over to help me move furniture and set up my new apartment. We spend hours arranging the couch and hanging pictures and organizing the kitchen. She brings pizza for dinner and we eat sitting on the floor because I don't have a dining table yet. Rosemary looks at me and says she's proud of how I'm handling everything. She says I seem more like myself than I have in years. I ask her what she means, and she explains that during my relationship with Arlo, I was always second-guessing myself and asking for other people's opinions about basic choices. She says now I make decisions without needing validation from everyone around me. I didn't realize how much I had changed until she pointed it out. We stay up late talking and laughing, and I feel grateful to have a friend who stuck by me through all of this. My email pings with a long message from Arlo. He apologizes for everything and says he started therapy to work on his issues. He writes that he understands if I never forgive him, but wants me to know he's trying to become a better person. He claims he's been diagnosed with some kind of attachment disorder, and his therapist is helping him understand why he did what he did. The email goes on for paragraphs about his childhood and his fears and his regrets. I read it once all the way through, and then I delete it without responding. I don't owe him my forgiveness or my attention. His healing journey is not my responsibility. I close my laptop and go make tea and don't think about him for the rest of the night. I start reaching out to friends I lost touch with during my relationship with Arlo. I text people I used to see regularly and suggest meeting up for coffee or dinner. Most of them respond right away saying they'd love to reconnect. Over the next few weeks, I have several conversations where friends admit they thought something was off about Arlo, but didn't want to interfere in my relationship. One friend says he seemed controlling about small things like where we sat at restaurants or what I ordered. Another friend mentions that I stopped suggesting plans and always checked with Arlo first before committing to anything. Hearing their observations hurts because it means other people saw what I couldn't see, but it also validates my experience. I wasn't imagining the control. It was real enough that people on the outside noticed it too. Gabriella shows up at my apartment on Saturday morning with coffee and a determined look on her face. She announces we're going shopping, and I'm not allowed to say no. I start to make excuses about not having money to spend on new clothes, but she waves me off and says it's her treat and I need to stop arguing. We drive to the mall and walk into stores I usually avoid because they seem too trendy or colorful. Gabriella pulls dresses off racks and holds them up against me, ignoring my protests that they're not my style. She says that's exactly the point, because my style has been dictated by Arlo for 3 years, and now I get to figure out what I actually like. We try on clothes for over an hour, and I keep gravitating toward the neutral professional pieces in blacks and grays. Gabriella physically steers me away from those sections and brings me a bright blue dress with a pattern of small flowers. I hold it up and immediately think it's too much, too attention-grabbing, too young for me. Then I realize those are all things Arlo would have said. I try the dress on and stare at myself in the fitting room mirror. The color makes my skin look warm and healthy. The cut fits my body in a way that feels comfortable and confident. I look like someone who enjoys getting dressed in the morning instead of someone performing a professional costume. Gabriella sees my face when I come out of the fitting room and doesn't even ask if I'm getting it. She just takes it to the register and pays before I can talk myself out of it. My phone buzzes with a text from Jasmine a few days later. She says she has news and wants me to know she started seeing someone new. She met him at a friend's party and they've been on 3 dates so far. She writes that he complimented her growing out hair once and then never mentioned it again, unless she specifically asked his opinion. She says it's refreshing to be with someone who doesn't have an agenda about how she looks or what she wears. She mentions that this guy asked her what she wanted to do on their dates instead of planning everything and expecting her to go along with it. I text back that I'm happy for her and mean it. We've developed this strange friendship built on shared trauma, and hearing that she's moving forward makes me feel hopeful about my own healing. I'm at the grocery store on a Wednesday evening picking up basics when I turn the corner into the produce section and see Arlo examining apples near the organic display. My chest tightens immediately and I freeze in place with my hand still on the cart handle. He hasn't seen me yet. I should just continue shopping like a normal person, but my brain screams at me to leave right now. I abandon my cart in the middle of the aisle and walk quickly toward the exit, my heart pounding so hard I can feel it in my throat. I make it to my car and sit there shaking for 10 minutes before I can even put the key in the ignition. I call River from the parking lot and she talks me through breathing exercises until I calm down enough to drive home. At our next session, River helps me understand that panic responses are normal after what I experienced. We work on strategies for handling unexpected encounters, including planning what I might say if I have to interact with Arlo and practicing staying in public spaces instead of fleeing. She reminds me that my anxiety doesn't mean I'm not healing. It just means my nervous system is still processing the betrayal. I'm folding laundry in my apartment one evening when I realize I haven't looked at Arlo's social media in over a week. I used to check it multiple times a day, searching for clues about what he's doing or whether he's seeing someone new. I would read through old posts trying to find hidden meanings or signs I should have noticed. But lately I've been too busy with work and therapy and reconnecting with friends to obsess over his life. The need to understand exactly why he did what he did is fading. I'm starting to accept that I might never have a satisfying explanation for his choices. And that's okay because his behavior was about his own issues, not about anything lacking in me. I focus on my own growth instead of trying to decode his psychology. It feels like progress. My supervisor called me into her office on Friday afternoon, and I spent the walk down the hallway worried I did something wrong. Instead, she offers me a promotion to senior account manager. The position requires occasional evening networking events and client dinners. A year ago, I would have turned it down immediately because Arlo always made me feel guilty about evening commitments. I would have convinced myself I didn't deserve the promotion or that the extra responsibility would be too stressful. But I accept the offer without hesitation and thank her for the opportunity. She smiles and mentions that I seem more confident and engaged at work lately. She says I've been contributing more in meetings and taking initiative on projects. I realize she's right. I'm not second-guessing every decision or waiting for someone else to validate my ideas anymore. Jasmine and I meet for lunch at a cafe downtown to catch up on our healing progress. We sit outside in the spring sunshine and compare notes on therapy and dating and learning to trust ourselves again. She admits she still has hard days where she questions her judgment about everything. I tell her I do too, especially when I'm tired or stressed. We talk about red flags we're learning to recognize in potential relationships. Things like people who push boundaries after we say no, or who have explanations that don't quite add up, or who seem too interested in changing how we look or act. Jasmine says she's getting better at walking away from situations that feel off instead of talking herself into giving people more chances. I agree that's something I'm working on too. We finish lunch and hug goodbye, both of us acknowledging how strange it is that we've become friends through such awful circumstances, but also how grateful we are to have someone who truly understands what we went through. River and I spend a session talking about how my hair growing out became symbolic of reclaiming my autonomy. She points out that while the physical change was important, the real work is rebuilding my sense of self beyond appearance. I'm learning to trust my preferences and judgment in all areas of my life, not just how I look. We discuss how I'm making decisions about my career, my friendships, my living space, and my daily routines based on what I actually want, instead of what someone else thinks I should want. River asks me to notice moments when I choose something for myself without seeking validation from others. I realize I've been doing that more often lately, like accepting the promotion or buying the blue dress, or deciding to keep growing my hair without asking anyone's opinion first. I go on a few casual dates over the next month and use them as practice for setting boundaries and being honest about what I want. The first date, I'm so nervous I barely speak, but I manage to say no when he suggests going to a second location after dinner. The second date, I'm more comfortable, and I tell him directly that I'm not interested in a relationship right now, just casual company. He respects that, and we have a nice evening. The third date, I realize halfway through that I'm not attracted to this person, and I end the date early instead of forcing myself to sit through dessert out of politeness. Each time I advocate for myself, it gets a little easier. I'm learning that being direct about my needs doesn't make me difficult or demanding. It makes me honest. Gabriella comes over for dinner at my apartment and watches me cook while we talk about work and family and my dating experiments. She says I seem lighter and more pleasant than I have in years. I ask what she means, and she explains that during my relationship with Arlo, I was always second-guessing myself about everything. She says I would ask everyone's opinion before making even small decisions, like what to order at restaurants or whether to cut my hair or what color to paint my bedroom. She mentions that I constantly sought validation and seemed anxious about making the wrong choice. But now I make decisions with confidence and don't need everyone to agree with me before I move forward. I didn't realize how much I had changed until she pointed it out. We eat dinner and laugh about old memories, and I feel grateful to have a sister who stuck by me through all of this and who sees my growth even when I don't notice it myself. I'm at a coffee shop near my apartment ordering an iced latte when Julian walks in and spots me at the counter. He approaches me carefully and says he's been hoping to run into me because he wants to apologize for his role in Arlo's deception. He explains that he knew about both relationships and helped cover for Arlo at work events by running interference and making excuses. He says he feels terrible about it and has been dealing with the social consequences at their company. I listen to his whole apology and then tell him I appreciate him saying that, but I'm not interested in maintaining any connection to that situation. I explain that I'm focused on moving forward, and that includes not having relationships with people who are part of the deception, even if they regret it now. Julian looks disappointed but nods and says he understands. I take my coffee and walk out of the shop feeling strong and clear about my boundaries. I don't owe him forgiveness or friendship just because he apologized. I get to decide who stays in my life. A few weeks pass, and I notice my hair brushing against my shoulders when I turn my head. I stand in front of my bathroom mirror one morning and pull the strands forward to check the length. It reaches past my shoulders for the first time since before I met Arlo. I run my fingers through it and smile at my reflection. The hair itself looks good, but that's not what makes me feel proud. I chose this length myself without asking anyone's opinion or seeking validation. I didn't cut it to please someone else or let it grow because someone told me to. This decision came from me alone, and that feels more important than any hairstyle ever could. I take a photo and text it to Rosemary with a simple caption about reaching my goal length. She responds immediately with celebration emojis and says, "I look beautiful." I believe her. But more than that, I believe myself when I look in the mirror now. My phone buzzes with a text from Jasmine a few days later. She sends a photo of herself at what looks like a company event based on the background decorations and professional attire. Her hair has grown out past her shoulders too, and she's smiling next to a man with his arm around her waist. The caption says she wanted to share some good news about her new relationship. I zoom in on her face and notice the genuine happiness in her expression. She looks relaxed and comfortable in a way I never saw in any of the photos from her time with Arlo. I text back congratulations and mean it. The fact that I feel happy for her surprises me given how we met and the strange circumstances that brought us together. But we both survived the same manipulation, and seeing her move forward with someone who treats her well makes me hopeful for my own future. We're not close friends and probably never will be, but there's a connection between us that feels important, even if we only check in occasionally. I'm organizing my closet the following weekend when I realize something has shifted in how I think about what happened with Arlo. I pull out a dress I bought during our relationship because he said the color looked sophisticated on me. I remember second-guessing my own taste and deferring to his opinion about almost everything. But now when I look at the dress, I just see a piece of clothing that doesn't fit my style anymore. The betrayal and manipulation are part of my history, and taught me to recognize red flags and trust my own judgment. Those lessons matter and shape who I am now, but the actual events don't dominate my thoughts the way they did in those first awful months. I don't replay conversations in my head or wonder what I could have done differently. The whole experience exists as something that happened to me rather than something that defines me. I donate the dress along with several other items that don't feel like me anymore. The closet looks sparse when I finish, but everything left represents choices I made for myself. My next therapy session with River feels different from the beginning. We sit in her office and she asks about my progress over the past few months. I tell her about the coffee shop encounter with Julian and how I set clear boundaries without feeling guilty. I mention the casual dates where I practiced being direct about my needs and preferences. I describe the growing confidence I feel when making decisions without seeking validation from others. River listens carefully and then suggests we might be ready to transition from weekly sessions to monthly check-ins. She explains that I've made remarkable progress in rebuilding my sense of self and learning to recognize manipulation tactics before they take hold. The goal of therapy was never to erase what happened, but to help me process it and develop tools for healthier relationships moving forward. She believes I have those tools now and can continue growing without needing weekly support. The idea of ending regular sessions makes me nervous for about 10 seconds before I realize the nervousness comes from habit, rather than actual need. I agree to the new schedule and we plan our next monthly appointment. Walking out of her office that day feels like graduating from something difficult but necessary. 6 months have passed since the holiday party revelation, when I decide to host a dinner party at my apartment. I invite Rosemary, Gabriella, and a few other close friends I've reconnected with over the past half year. I spend the afternoon cooking and setting up my small dining area. The apartment still feels new to me in some ways, but it's completely mine, and that matters. My guests arrive with wine and desserts, and we crowd around my table talking and laughing. Rosemary tells embarrassing stories from our college days. Gabriella shares updates about her kids and her new job promotion. Another friend talks about her dating disasters, and we all offer advice and support. The conversation flows easily without any awkward silences or forced topics. We stay at the table long after we finish eating, refilling wine glasses and cooking with leftover appetizers. Someone suggests we play a card game and we clear the dishes to make room. The evening stretches late into the night, and I look around at these people who stuck by me through everything. I feel genuinely content in a way I couldn't have imagined during those first awful weeks after the truth came out. This apartment, these friendships, this version of myself all feel solid and real. Nobody mentions Arlo once during the entire evening, and I don't think about him either until later when everyone has left and I'm cleaning up. Even then, the thought passes quickly without leaving any weight behind it. I'm getting ready for a work event the next week when I catch my reflection in my bedroom mirror. I've been styling my long hair with a curling iron and it falls past my shoulders in loose waves. I pause with the iron still in my hand and really look at the woman staring back at me. She looks confident with her shoulders back and her head held high. She looks authentic in the clothes she chose because she likes them, not because someone told her they were sophisticated. She looks free from the constant need to adjust herself to fit someone else's preferences. For the first time in years, I recognize her as completely myself, without any layers of performance or people-pleasing. The recognition makes me smile, and I finish styling my hair with steady hands. I grab my bag and head out to the event feeling ready for whatever comes next. The future feels open and full of possibilities I get to choose for myself.